I'm Elle Embers, and this is Cosmic Curiosities.
Hi guys, and welcome back to Cosmic Curiosities. In today's episode, we're learning about what it means to live authentically. My guest Andrew is a spiritual coach, assisting us to release what no longer serves us, and to step into who we truly are by trading comfortability for authenticity. And with that being said, today I'd really like you to consider where or when in your life you're choosing to play it safe, to make yourself small, or not pursue what feels truly aligned to you. And ask yourself, why am I doing this? Because even just asking this question has begun opening so many new doors for me and feeling so much more aligned to who I really am. So, are we ready to step into our true selves? Hi Andrew, how are you?
Hi, I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'm so excited to chat with you. Before we get started though, would you like to introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about you?
So hello everyone. My name's Andrew Rowe. I am Irish, British and Canadian. I was born in Switzerland and I grew up in France. And I'll buy a drink for anyone who can remember that after 10 drinks. Because usually this is what happens, and like my friends have known me for ages and they still don't know where I'm from. They think I'm from Sweden. No, Switzerland and Sweden are not the same thing. So I am a spiritual coach / healer. I am clairaudient, clairsentient, clairvoyant. I have all the clairs in my back pocket. And so what I essentially do is I work with my clients at helping identify what are their limiting beliefs that are preventing them from living an authentic life, and where they're linked to within their childhood or even past lives. So I specialize in being able to really tune into people's energy and being able to access things that maybe they can't access. Sometimes I can hear their thoughts, which seems maybe a little bit wild in the sense of like invasive, but I always ask for permission. But it really helps me get to the bottom of a situation. And I use a combination of all the modalities that I've learned over the years of my growth to really do some profound healings in every session with my clients so that they can remove themselves from all the density and heaviness that they've created within their lives and move back into their true essence of love. So, that's me.
Awesome. I love it. And you're moving soon, right?
Yes, I am moving to Bali on Tuesday, which is really exciting. So a little bit of how that kind of happened. My father was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer in November. And so I broke up with my partner and decided to come back to France and look after him. And so he died 3 months ago in June. And I was like, well, what am I going to do with my life? Like, where do I go? I could go anywhere because of my business. It's like, well, do I go to Barcelona? Do I go to Rome? I was like, do I go back to London? And so as I was falling asleep, I just heard a whisper, Bali. And then I just like kind of woke up and I was like, Bali. And I was like, but lots of people said, oh, it's really hard to move to Bali because of the time zones and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, wait, hang on. Why are you letting other people dictate what you can and can't do? You have your own clients. You can make it work. So I started to look into it, started to see like, actually, it's very feasible. I have a lot of clients in America. And so their, evening is my morning and, and it's always manageable. And so I was like, right, I'm doing it. And so here we are. Like, it's just flown by because, I decided this maybe 2.5 months ago. I told my mum, she was a bit like, no, Bali hates gays. That was the first thing she said. It's dangerous. I mean, Indonesia is very homophobic, but Bali is a Hindu country. So I think this young gay will be all right there. And so, so I'm leaving Tuesday for a new adventure.
Bali's a very spiritual place. I feel like there'd be more accepting.
For sure.
So I think you'll be fine.
Of course I will.
But that's so exciting. And overcoming your own blockages with that, it just goes to show that you have to do what you preach.
100%. I mean, this is about living authentically, right? And so even though people say, oh, maybe it's not a good idea, or oh, maybe you should go somewhere that is a bit this, you have to follow what's true to you and not allow other people to dictate what you should do in your life, because you have to remember that what they're seeing is going through the filter of their fears, their worries, and their conditioning. So it's about being able to make decisions for you without being influenced by what other people say. Of course, take notice, like people have told me, be careful on the mopeds, a lot of people have accidents. I know that. But at the same time, it's the only mode of transportation, and you have to make your own decisions. And I think for me, it was like, here you are, Andrew, this is another way of stepping more into your authenticity. And yeah, I'm doing it, and I'm doing it in style, and I'm looking forward to it. And I know that over there, it's just going to push me even more to learn more about myself, to grow. I really want to deepen my meditation practice. And the goal actually is to create my own modality. So I'm trusting that I'll be channeling a modality when I'm over there, so that I can then become like a teacher who can teach other people my modality and help more and more people. That's the goal. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I should ask, while you teach people to live in their most authentic selves, what does authenticity mean to you?
That's a good question. I think for me, the main thing is living your true self. And what I mean by that is everyone's version of authenticity will differ in some way. Okay, so Elle, your personality is different from mine. So the way you show up in life will be different to mine, because you have a different personality to me, right? But the crux of it is, the thing that we have in similarity, in common, is that we're both eternal beings of light. That is what we have in common, that we are both spiritual beings having a human experience. So for me, authenticity is living through soul rather than through ego. And so it's about like really choosing love, choosing yourself, choosing boundaries, choosing to speak up, choosing honesty, all of these different things, right? That make us, I guess, if we wanted to use like a term that people could understand, like an ascended master, right? Like the ascended masters lived so authentically because they lived through soul. And so my version, my understanding of authenticity is, well, how can I move you closer to your soul's essence, your true self, so that you can embody more light, and so that you can then, through the ripple effect, share that with others so that they can step into it too, right? Because if I start living authentically, if I'm like, okay, I'm moving to Bali, someone else, well, actually, funnily enough, my friend from London messaged me saying he's moving to Bali in October. And I had told him I was moving to Bali in September. And perhaps, maybe, me taking the leap was his like little like nudge of like, well, actually, he's going to be there. Why don't I do it, right? And so we really don't realize how much of an impact we can have on people by just living truthfully in this world. So I would say that's, for me, is what authenticity means.
Yeah, I love that.
How about you?
I mean, I'm pretty much on the same brainwave as you with that, because so often as I grew, so did the people around me, because they would see the impacts and the effects that it would have on me and go, wow, okay, like she's done this. What's stopping me from doing this? I can do that. And yeah, I feel like as long as you're being true to yourself, there's nothing else that, you should really be worried about, and not care what other people think, because they will form their own opinions and own goals based on what feels good for them.
And also just knowing that like not everyone is ready to let go of the suffering. Not everyone is ready to go on the journey that you're on, and to be able to accept that and to understand, some people feel like they have to stay in the suffering or they stay in the anger because they don't know any way out. Yet if they're shown ways out, they choose to reject it. And that's okay, because that's everyone's journey. And we can't be here to judge others. We can't be like, well, why is this person not doing this? It's like, well, maybe they're just not ready. And maybe we just need to learn more compassion for those people. So, you will change people around you, and you will lose people as well, because you're going to be vibrating at a frequency that you're going to be like, no, actually, I don't tolerate that. I don't want that type of behavior in my life, because I know who I am. I trust who I am. I know my integrity, and I'm not going to allow someone to make me feel like I'm a bad person, or to make me feel unwanted or unneeded just because they're projecting their sufferings onto me, right? And so that's also about authenticity, is learning to make those hard decisions of like, well, let's weigh out the pros and cons. Like, how valuable is this friendship or this person in my life at the moment?
Yeah, and just kind of accepting the relationships for what they are. Some relationships aren't meant to be for years and years and years. Some are only meant to be for a moment or a transition or a phase or a period that teaches us a lesson or teaches us a growth or helps us through a situation. And same goes for them. And it's just, I guess, accepting where they're at and where you're at and whether those align.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah.
So how were you treating authenticity for maybe more of comfortability in your past?
Well, let's start off with when I was a wee little boy, when I was young, right? So I think I knew I was gay at the age of 11, and I didn't come out. Well, I had my first boyfriend when I was 17, but I didn't officially come out to my parents when I was 20. And so the reason for that was comfortability, in the sense of, well, it was flipping uncomfortable, but comfortable in the sense of, well, don't need to cause conflict, don't need to like split up the family, don't need to do all of those things. But actually, in hindsight, the discomfort was way stronger than just being able to just move through it and feel the freedom. And so that was when I started to really step into authenticity, was when I started to accept. I think that's another thing. Authenticity is acceptance. Accept who I am and love who I am. And it's a journey, and it's still a journey, especially when religion is involved. And I mean, I didn't grow up super religious, but I have a lot of religious programs from past lives, and obviously from ancestral as well. And my mum was quite religious in her own way. And so I was always taught that it was wrong or that it was bad. And I grew up in rural France, right? And I did catechism and I did that kind of stuff. And you can imagine rural France was not the most progressive place, still not. And so I was just constantly shown that it was wrong or it was bad, like that. And so it was hard for me to live authentically, because I was told that it was not the right thing to live. It was like I had to change. But then I got moved into a private school in Geneva, where it was a lot more open, a lot more liberal. I was growing into who I was. It was English as well, so people were just more open, right? And so then I found the courage, to have my first boyfriend, and then that was a shit show, but we won't go into that. But we we went to prom together, and even there I still received some funny looks from teachers and stuff. But bear in mind, I was born in the 90s, so it's not that like long time ago, you know what I mean? Like, it was, you would think it would have been a bit more progressive, and so then went to university where I did my gap year and stuff, and that's where I really started to be able to step into who I was. I went for my first gay pride and started to realize, actually, wait, I can be accepted like this. I can be authentic. I don't have to pretend that I'm macho and deep in my voice and I'd never played football, by the way, but yeah, played football and all those kind of things. I can just be me. And I was this like theater kid who wanted to be an actor and who loved musical theater and stuff. And I was just like, own it, And so bit by bit, I learned to own it. And then I came out to my parents in a very like telenovela dramatic way, where I wrote a letter and put it down on table and then left and took my flight and then landed. And then they had read it when I was away and whatever. And then that was really liberating. And then from then on, it was just like, okay, like step by step, let's move more into our authentic self. But one thing that I very much noticed was I was still pandering for other people's validation. Maybe, the acting kind of came in with that as well, like wanting to be seen, wanting to be loved, wanting to be this. But that's not your authentic truth. That's just your ego. That's your wounded inner child. And so, I went on this journey of so much. My spiritual journey is pretty intense. And so I went through all of these different hoops and things to step more into my authenticity. And the most recent thing was, broke up with my partner of 7 years. And me and Daniel had a really great relationship. And, we were together I was like 24, I think, and he was in his 30s, 36. And we had a great relationship and it really served us. But I then grew a lot because of all the healing that I was doing. And quickly, the pattern was no longer serving me. And it got to the point where it was like, well, look, you have to make a decision. You can either be in comfort, you can be in your very nice house in, the suburbs of London and then maybe get a dog and do this. But that there'll be something missing. You'll feel that within you because you are so connected to your soul already that you can't lie to yourself. And so I had to make the decision, and my authentic self was saying, you need to break up with this man. And it was the hardest decision I've ever made. And I made it last November. And I know this is just something that I wanted, for listeners, I know there's a lot of people who are in relationships and who just stay in the relationship because it's comfortable, because it's what they know. And they know deep down that maybe it's not that there's something else, like the grass is greener, but they know that something's missing. And I just want to kind of invite the listeners to maybe pay attention to that nudge. Your higher self knows exactly what's right for you. It's not about escaping, it's about following what's true to you so you live authentically so that you can grow the most possible on this planet, so that you can then help people through your growth, and so then you can evolve your soul, which I believe is the purpose of our existence. But so many people trade comfortability instead of authenticity, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, thank you so much for sharing that story with us, because I know that's personal. But it actually reminded me, this is going to sound totally weird and off topic, but there's a comedian whose name is Daniel Sloss. And he had this analogy of a jigsaw puzzle. So when you kind of start out in life, you've got your corner pieces that you always start with a jigsaw, right? So you've got like your family, your hobbies and interests, your friends, and your career. And then you kind of spend the rest of your life trying to fill in the picture, but you've lost the box. So you don't know what the puzzle's supposed to look like. And his dad gave him this analogy of saying, the middle piece, that's your partner piece. And growing up, he always felt like he had to fill this partner piece. It instilled this belief in him that if he didn't have a partner, if a Disney princess didn't have a prince or whatever, they were incomplete, unfulfilled. And in reality, he was trying to put a partner piece there that just was not fitting with the puzzle. So then he was having to rearrange the whole jigsaw. And by the end of it, he's looking at his jigsaw, looking at his life, and going, I don't know what the fuck this is anymore. Like, those aren't my interests. Those aren't my hobbies. My family, mum, what? That bitch? Haven't spoken to her forever. Like, like, it just didn't make sense to him. And he stood there and was like, okay, do I acknowledge that I've spent, in your example, 7 years with someone? And yeah, it might feel like, oh, I invested 7 years. I'm never going to get 7 years back. But is that worth spending the rest of my life being comfortable, being unsatisfied, being unfulfilled, and trying to force someone else's puzzle piece into my jigsaw? And that just hit me so hard one day. I was like, this guy needs a TED Talk.
Yeah.
It just made total sense to me, because it was like, so often we are going around trying to force pieces to fit into our jigsaw. And we forget that every person has their own individual jigsaw they are trying to build. And it's not about forcing someone to fit in one piece. It's about putting two pictures together that complement each other.
Absolutely. And it's not about, I think this was a quote that was in the book, The Road Less Traveled by Scott M. Peck. It's actually from another book, I think, but it's about these, a relationship is not one pillar. It's two pillars that are supporting one another as they grow upwards. And that's so true. And there's so many relationships out there where people become entwined and they become so codependent on each other, and they do all the same sports and they do everything together. And they're like, there's no individualism, and they lose their authentic selves because they become the other person. And usually it will be one person who is, I don't want to say the word weak, but like who has a less strong energy than the other. And so then they latch on, and then they completely lose themselves. And I think, you were saying something around the 7 years, and I know you weren't suggesting this for me, because for me, the 7 years were the most amazing years of my life. And I have so much gratitude. And I would say that to people who are listening. It means just because from what happened with me and my partner, we did conscious uncoupling, right? It was so beautiful. It's still beautiful. Like, we still communicate. He's in Nepal right now, going to climb Mount Everest. All right, bitch. All right, high achiever, calm down. Well, I go like sit on a beach in Bali, but it's about remembering that we are two human beings. And just because you've shared this beautiful life and all of these amazing memories, you're two human beings, and you deserve to treat each other fairly and lovingly and kindly. And it's so heartbreaking to see so many people who get like really messy divorces or relationships that end up really sour. And the only reason that happens is because it was supposed to end years ago. And they chose not to end it. And they chose comfortability over authenticity. And they stayed in it and stayed in it and stayed in it until the universe was like, bitch, get out. Like, it's not going to work. You know what I mean? So it's like we get given these signals, these flags that are just like, hey, okay, maybe this isn't the right thing for you. And then you don't listen. And then people are like, oh, I'm going through a really messy divorce. It's like, well, hello, you created that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry, but you did. And if there's anyone listening who's going through a messy divorce, I'm sorry. I don't mean it in like a, you're a bad person. I mean it in, please take ownership of what you've created and stop pointing blame. That's another thing around divorces, is that they always blame the other person. It's all their fault. It's all their fault. No, it's not. Stop it. It takes two to tango. A relationship is two people. You cannot blame. And I think that also is this idea of being your authentic self, is taking ownership of everything that happens in your life, and know that you're a conscious creator. And so if you have shit things happening in your life, have a little look at what you're thinking in your head. Have a little look at like, what is your default emotion and feeling? Because chances are you're creating that as well.
Absolutely.
Rant over.
I was the same, like my ex-spouse and I, we got together at a really young age, and we got so comfortable just being with each other that we knew it wasn't the right thing. Like, we had a great friendship, we had a great relationship platonically, but we were trying to force something romantic that just wasn't there. But being young, you think, this is what it's supposed to be. And, when we did get divorced and everything, we still co-parent our children together. They were in the bridal party for my wedding to my current partner. So that's how close that we still remain. Just because you're not serving each other in a romantic relationship anymore does not mean that this person has to be exiled from your life. It's just maybe the dynamic has changed. Maybe a different relationship needs to flourish rather than the one that you've been in for so long.
And it takes time, right? So like I chose to break up with Daniel, but then in March, when I went back to London, I found out that he had a new boyfriend. And that was literally like someone ripping out my heart, stamping on it, spitting on it. Like, it was the most painful feeling I have ever felt apart from breaking up with him. And I thought I would never get over it. And of course, you do, because time is a healer, and it's cliche and everyone says it, but like, experience heartbreak, experience loss, time is a healer. And in that moment, the emotions are going to be severe and they're going to be strong, but nothing is permanent. Understand the impermanence of life and understand the impermanence of your emotions and your feelings. And so that moment that you decide to make that decision, yeah, there's going to be a fallout. Yeah, maybe you're going to have to move out. You're going to have to deal with like who has what and all those kind of things. But I can promise you that in comparison to living with someone for 20 years, knowing that it's not the right relationship, is just a little grain of sand. You're going to find so much more joy and happiness. And look, here I am. Like I'm moving to Bali on Tuesday, and I would have never been able to do that if I stayed with my partner. I mean, he was doing a gap year anyway. So yeah, it would have been interesting how that would have worked. But it's the whole thing is like my best friend, Sophie, said to me, because, you know, she knew how much I was finding it difficult. She said, you know, something good's going to come. Something's good's going to come. And I was like on the phone in tears. I was like, I don't see anything good coming. This is not going to happen. And then like a month later, I was like, oh, hi, Sophie. Something good came. You know, like it's like because you're in your feels and it's okay to be in your feels. Like that's okay. That's also your authentic self. Like don't ignore it. Don't deny what you're feeling, but just know that it's not going to last forever. And take that bravery, take the courage, be honest with yourself. You know, that's one of the pillars of authenticity is honesty and just be honest with yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. You're so right. And I guess I want to ask, how did you end up working in this industry? Because obviously you've had so much of your own experiences and your own growth, and authenticity has done so much for you personally. But what about your experiences led you to going, I want to do this for other people?
All right. Is everyone holding on to their seats? Because this is going to be a... Okay. I'll try and make it as abridged as possible. So I've always been quite like spiritual. I've always believed in magic. I was always very like, as a kid, very open. I always could hear people's thoughts or really feel people's emotions, like and I was constantly called paranoid by my parents, like you're just being paranoid, you're oversensitive, like, you know. And by the way, if someone says that, that's emotional abuse. And I'm not saying my parents were emotional abusive because they wouldn't have known that was it, but it is actually emotional abuse because you're telling someone that their feelings aren't real. And so I always felt this. And then I had this like kind of really amazing experience when I went to, church school and whatever. And I felt really this beautiful light. And I was like, okay, cool. Like this stuff is real. But then I realized it was uncool to be Christian. And then also I realized that they don't like gays. So I was like, fuck this shit, I'm out. And then went on this like journey of like self-destruction, really, like did a lot of drugs, a lot of drinking, and then started to get in more and more into drugs, like harder drugs. And they were really fun, like they were escapism. It was really great. And then I got to university and I started taking this drug called ketamine, which is a horse tranquilizer. And I really, really enjoyed this drug because it makes you feel nothing. It makes you feel, it's a sedative. So you just don't feel your emotions. You don't feel you don't have those incessant thoughts anymore. And so for a period of 3 months, I was addicted to it. Like I was doing ketamine every day, morning, afternoon, evening. Like I was just on K all the time. And the friends that I had made at uni at the time were like, we don't recognize you. You've become different. I was like missing out on auditions, like I would go to an audition, but I'd be like just silly things, right? And so then ketamine started to like that you couldn't buy it anymore because India changed their laws. And so there was this new drug called MXC. And so after this, now we're into my second year of university, and I was doing like, Molly and all this kind of stuff, but I started to do this MXC stuff. Now this MXC was dirty and not nice drug. And what it was is that it made you K-hole, or made you have like these like really strong psychedelic effects, but with your eyes open, which is super unsafe. And especially combining it with weed or whatever. And so I started having all of these very strange experiences around like seeing angels and then demons, seeing auras, like having all of this like very, very, I would say insane, but at the same time made total sense, but at the same time linked to my Christian upbringing experiences. And then I just got pulled into it more and more. And things just started to go really dark. And I started to listen to the voices in my head, and I started to believe that I was evil. I became pretty like a paranoid, really. I wasn't allowed, like, I couldn't leave my house if there was a red car parked outside. I was obsessed with the color red, silver, and blue. Blue being heaven, red being hell, silver being purgatory. I wouldn't cross the road even if it was safe, if there was a red light, because I thought I was walking into hell. And it just got worse and worse and worse and worse. Now, the thing is, I wasn't allowed to tell anyone because the voices in my head were saying that angels would die if people knew. So I was just basically like harboring this like horrific mental illness, basically, / spiritual awakening. I had no one to talk to. No one to help me because I just wasn't aware of spirituality, right? I didn't even know, like, the world is a completely different place now than it was when I was at university. And so I was convinced I was a demon. Like, I was evil, that I deserved to be in hell. And then it started going to my dream state. I would wake up having panic attacks. Like, it became so severe, like, to the point where I then started being paranoid that the sun was actually controlled by aliens, and so I couldn't be in the sun anymore. It just became like bonkers, really, really bonkers. And so obviously you create your reality. So if you believe this, it becomes more and more true. At the same time, I'm at university, and then at the same time, my mum gets diagnosed with cancer. And so I then believe it's my fault, because of the bad things that I've been thinking and all of this horrible stuff. And I'm like, oh, it's my fault kind of thing. And then I'm like, Andrew, you need to just pull your socks up. Like, this is, you're going to die. Because every single time I saw a tree, I was like, oh, I could hang myself there. I could, it just got so intense. I just wanted to run away and escape. And so I said to myself, no more drugs, no more that you're not doing, stop doing this. Like you need to be clean, stop doing it. And so then I was like, right, what do I need to do to get a first at university? And I looked and it said I had to get a first in all modules apart from one, which was a 2-1. And I was like, right, that's my goal. And so then I had this goal that was driving me. And then I was really doing my acting and stuff. And I was like very involved. And so that year I got a first at university. And so I was like, okay, this is amazing. But did the thoughts go away? No. Did the paranoia go away? No. If I drank alcohol, I would feel the same thing. So it just became so intense. And I just dealt with this like mental health issue, and then went to see a psychiatrist. And then I was like, nope, no thank you. They were going to like put me on medication. I was like, run away from that. Like, I don't want medication. That's not for me. I know what medication does to you. And then I met Daniel. And that's why he's been such a force of good in my life, because he was just a very positive person. And so then I ended up doing yoga thanks to him. And because I was unemployed, I was doing yoga every day. And I started to see all these colors, and I felt like all this like euphoria and all this stuff. And I was like, whoa, this is wild. And then, we started to date like officially. And we then went on this really long trip together. And then we went to Thailand. We went on a retreat, and we went on spiritual retreats together. And, he was open to all of this because he was into yoga. And then there we met this amazing girl called Alana, who's a friend of mine now. And she did a angel card reading for me, and I was like super drawn to angel cards, and I was like, whoa. And then I started to play around with it, and I was like, oh my God, this is so true. This is so real. This stuff works. And like in every reading people would give me, they were like, you're such a good person. And I'd always break down crying. And then, and basically these people were reflecting back like the truth of who I was. And so then I went on this journey of like, I would say probably the duration of the relationship with Daniel, of like going to retreats and delving deeper and learning how to well, I never got taught how to do cards. It just was something that came really natural to me. So I do readings for people and started to really be like, okay, you know what? No, fuck this. I'm not going to allow some stupid ass shit or drugs define who I am. I'm going to go on my journey of self-discovery. I'm going to find out what my light truly is. So I did the Camino de Santiago, which is this pilgrimage from the edge of France to the edge of Spain, which is about 1,000-kilometer walk. And so I did that and met like amazing people who were all confirming me. Like one person gave me an angel, and I was like, okay, cool. Like I'm building up now an inventory of like good things, that I'm a good person, that, all of this kind of stuff. And then I was working with refugees and asylum seekers. And the more I started to love myself, thanks to Daniel, because he helped me really learn to love myself. That was one of the greatest gifts he's given me. The more that was then reflected back at me. And so I went into total darkness and found my light. And I really do believe that that journey happened on purpose, because I am so strong within my own light now because of the journey. And I also know that the darkness is just an illusion. It's not actually there. And so I went on some more deeper spiritual retreats and had some really incredible psychic experiences. And I was like, whoa, Andrew, you're super tapped in. You're super tuned in. Like, this is so awesome. And then I slipped. We're in COVID time.
Yeah.
I slipped my disc. And at the time I was like, you know what? Like, what am I doing with my life? Like, I'm pursuing acting, but it's not really giving me any joy. It's actually making me think I'm ugly and that I'm like shit and like poor self-esteem. I'm working with these refugees, but it's really, I feel like I'm here, I'm destined to do more, but I just don't know what it is. And I had this friend come over, Marjorie, who did a fire ceremony and pulled a card for me. And it was the intuition card. And she said, you're not trusting your intuition, and then she said, you should try theta healing. And I was like, what's theta healing? I was like, that sounds weird. And then she's like, you should train with this woman. She's amazing. And so I looked into it and I saw the price and I was like, oh, no, I'm not really up for this. But then something was like, actually, do it. Give it a go. And then my boyfriend, ex-boyfriend at the time, was actually super judgmental. And he's like, no, don't do it. It's bad. It's a cult. And he printed out all this stuff to prove that it's a cult. And I was like, no, I'm doing it. And so I ended up doing this 2-day course and absolutely loved it, and also realized that I was really good at it. So then I continued to train in that, and then realized like I was always being put with teachers to do energy swaps, and they were always like, oh, you new to this? And I was like, yes. And they're like, you're very talented. And I'm like, okay, cool. So nice. People are giving me validation. Like, I wasn't really thinking anything of it. And funny enough, the woman who trained me, Anna Kitney, she said to me, your boyfriend will be eating his words when you're making more money than he is through the work that you do. And I was like, yeah, right, babes. Like, that's not going to happen. My ex-boyfriend's on a really good salary. I was like, no way. Like, it's not going to happen. I didn't really think anything of it, but I had shifted so much stuff that when I went back to work, I was like, boom, like super positive, working with my students. Like, how can I find the joy in every day? Like, let this happen. And then basically my business kind of just started. Like, I'm a confident person. So I was doing healings for people for like 22 quid or whatever. And they really liked it. And then I invested in a business coaching program, which was like me telling the universe, actually, I'm a bit serious about this. And then the universe was like, well, bitch, we're super serious about this. So here you go. And so this girl called Rachel Alice, who's an amazing business mentor and psychic coach, she was my 600th follower. And I messaged her and said, do you want a free reading? Just like, that's what I used to do. And she's like, yeah. And then I gave it and she's like, oh, I'd love a healing from you. So I gave her a healing. And then she's like, oh my God, you're incredible. Like, what the fuck? Like, And I was like, oh, okay, this is cute. Nice. And then she did like a video testimonial, and then I had like 20 clients. And then basically within 3 months, I had like 150 clients, and I was able to leave my job within a month. And so, yeah, pretty incredible. Like, I think part of the 0.1% that can do that in their first year of their business, but it was my dharma. It's my purpose. I really do believe that. And so bit by bit, I worked single sessions, and I started creating a program, and I started realizing actually working long term with me is a lot better than just working with one session, because you just get so much more achieved, right? It's like you go to the gym once, you're not going to see results. If you go to the gym consistently, you're going to see results. And then what happened was, I had this beautiful coach called Jo Sweeney, and she channeled this thing around authenticity. She said, that's your brand. That's who you are. You're an authentic person. You're here to teach authenticity. And I was like, I don't know. I don't really feel it. But then the more I felt into it, I was like, actually, you know what? Yes, I am very authentic. And that's why people like working with me. My mom goes, how do people pay you that money when they see you doing those silly videos? I'm like, Mom, bitch, they love those videos. Okay. They love that I'm funny because they love the fact that I'm authentic, but also really, really gifted at what I do and also very good at holding space. So it's like all these different things, right? And so then, I created this stuff around authenticity and realized actually what's stopping people from living their most expansive life is authenticity. What makes a coach or a business owner or whatever, like even an employee successful? Authenticity, because authenticity is sexy, authenticity sells, and because people want to be authentic themselves. So they want that, right? Mm-hmm. As an actor, I now finally understand that a lot of the actors who become successful are just authentic. They're just themselves. They're not trying to prove themselves to anyone. They're not trying to get anything from anyone. They are just themselves. And so I was like, okay, well, there you go. Here I am. I want to be the authenticity expert. I want to be the person who can like help people step back into their authentic selves. And I feel like I'm very much got all of the skills and tools I need. And I really am grateful now finally for that period in my life, which was the darkest period ever. And I know that you had something very similar happen to you, minus the drugs. And yeah, it now I'm just like, thank you, because I am who I am today. And I think that's also something I would welcome the listeners to view is what darkness are you regretting or pushing away that you can turn into your gold? Because that's truly why it's there in the first place.
Absolutely. It's all an experience that's meant to initiate further experiences, further growth. And you know what? I was so just taken back then because I was like, it's so funny that Rachel Alice was kind of like your pivoting point there for your business, because Rachel Alice and I have so many mutual friends.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know her personally, but I have friends that are very close to her, and I have heard wonderful things about her. So I was like, oh, that's so interesting that all of a sudden she's brought up.
She's everywhere.
Else.
That bitch is everywhere.
So yeah, but absolutely. And going through the tunnel of those dark experiences and getting through to the other side is when you really start to appreciate the pain and the suffering and everything that you've been through, because you realize how far you've come in that time. Like you said previously, it's not a forever thing. This is going to happen, but you're going to get through it. You're going to get better. Things are going to get easier.
And I guess what I would just add on to that is things are going to get better, but you have to take the action steps to make it happen. So, right, like if I hadn't gone on my spiritual journey, things wouldn't have gone better. I would have probably, do you know what I mean? Like if I continued in the pattern that I was continuing, I'm pretty sure I'd probably have ended up dead, because I got myself into some very difficult and dangerous situations. And so it's like, you know, people who have depression or anxiety, like you'll continue having depression and anxiety if you just keep popping pills and just hope that those are going to give you some kind of solution. No, your depression and anxiety is coming from something that's happened within your childhood that you're not willing to look at or not ready to look at or don't know how to look at. And I have quite a lot of clients actually who have depression and anxiety. And when we work together, we really start to release all of that, because you weren't born depressed. You weren't born anxious. And people can say that it's hereditary and, you know, oh, my dad had it. I don't give a shit. Like, why? You were not born that way. If I don't have, I was depressed, like suicidal as a teenager. If I can get out of it, so can you, right?
Yeah.
So let's stop like using labels as an excuse to not grow.
Yeah. And I was the same. You know, I went through really dark, depressing times. And if I can step out of depression and anxiety without the need for medication, and I made those actions, I took those paths, I listened to those nudges to follow my intuition and to focus on myself and to focus on growth, that I did make it through the other side. And that's the big thing, is so many people are looking for a Band-Aid solution. Mm-hmm. And popping pills, that's all that is a Band-Aid solution. It's not going to change your internal wiring. It's not going to change your mentality. It's not going to change your mindset. Mm-hmm. And it's definitely not going to change the environment around you. So all it is just kind of numbing those things out.
Yes.
And as soon as you stop taking the pills, all those things are going to be exactly the same.
Yeah. The energy is not going anywhere. It's just, as you said, numbing the energy. But as soon as you get off the pills, it's like a pressure cooker and poof, all explodes. Same thing when I was diagnosed with ADHD and they gave me Ritalin or whatever. And it was like, oh yeah, great. I'm at school and I'm listening and I'm a zombie and I have zero emotions or feelings at the moment. And then I get back to home, 5 o'clock, the medication wears off and I've got all of this energy, but I'm expected to do my math homework and I just can't do it because I've just got all this energy. It's just so fucked up, that these kids are being fed all of these this medication, told just because parents are just like, I need to have an understanding of why my child is behaving this way. How about you have a conversation with them? How about you talk to them? How about you take them to see someone that's not just a psychiatrist or a psychologist who works just, do you know what I mean? Think outside of the box. We are spiritual beings. Stop treating your children like they're just machines. And have you asked how your child feels? For me, those tablets made me suicidal. They made me insomniac. I was going to sleep at 4 a.m. and having to get up at 7 and then having to do my what is known as it's the IB, but in English terms it's A level. It's it was insanity. I was losing my marbles at such a young age. And yeah, sorry, I'm having a bit of a rant here because I just think it's just can we stop using labels as excuses to stop growing? You want to talk about exchanging, comfortability instead of authenticity? Labels. Depression, anxiety. Oh, I've got this, I've got that, I've got this. No, you're just making excuses. And I'm not saying that it doesn't exist. Please, whoever's listening, I'm not saying that your depression isn't there and it feels very real. I'm not saying your anxiety isn't there because I know it is because I've experienced it. But please stop using it as an excuse to not grow. Stop using it as an excuse for your behavior. It's not okay. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree. And, I grew up much the same. I had insomnia and had anxiety, had depression, and you're meant to just go out in society and fit the mold. And with kids especially, it's not a cookie cutter thing. And we should stop expecting them to, especially children, to have an adult attitude or adult mentality. Because, if they have so much energy, give them something to entertain that energy, to expel that energy. Don't just numb them out completely and expect them to grow up with a stable mentality. Because it's not
just
happen.
Have a conversation with your kids.
Yeah.
My parents, bless them, they did the best that they could with the tools that they had, and I know that. But they just had a conversation with me. If they just had sat me down, and I know I was difficult, I get that, I understand that. But if they just took a little bit of a better look at me, they would have seen the self-harm cuts all over my arm. You know what I mean? They would have noticed these different things, and it got to the point where I had self-harmed so bad with my legs, and I was just fuck it, my parents are still not even noticing this. This is insane. And we know self-harming, unless it's seriously trying to kill yourself, it's a cry for help. It's a way of releasing the emotion that we're feeling, the anger or the sadness or whatever, but it's also a cry for help. And I came out of the shower and I went into the hallway and I remember my legs were bleeding. And my mum just looked and then I said, and I just you made me do this, blah, blah, blah. I mean, no one made me do it. I did it myself. And then she was just shocked and she was like, oh my God, da, da, da. And it's yeah, but if you had just sat down and had a conversation with me, maybe we would have avoided this. And I'm not blaming them at all because, again, I was difficult. But it's sometimes you have to help that child know that they're loved, that they're safe, that they're supported, that they can be whoever they want to be, because that was the main reason I was cutting myself, and not have to make them a cookie cutter version of what you expect them to be, because that's probably why they're anxious, because they don't feel like they can fit your perception of who they should be, and you're not allowing them to be their own version of themselves, right?
Yeah.
So just have a chat with your kids, speak to them, talk to them.
Absolutely. And I wanted to ask as well, I know you have in your program, you have certain pillars of authenticity. Can you explain a little bit about the pillars involved? Because I know that authenticity, of course, would mean different things to different people. But from someone who was growing up in darker time and going through these experiences, what were the pillars that you've established through this?
Yeah. So through my research and understanding around authenticity, I broke it down into 4 different pillars. You've got communication, connection, great-heartedness, and integrity. And within all of the pillars, there's sub-pillars. So within communication, there's speaking your truth, honesty, and boundaries. And I won't go too deep into them because I'm actually hosting a Facebook challenge in October. So like and it's free, so people can learn more about it then. But basically, yeah, speaking your truth, honesty, and boundaries. And then in connection, it's the universe, gratitude, laughter, and guidance. Then great-heartedness is self-love, forgiveness, service, and play. And finally, integrity is honor, tenacity, and learning. And so all of these sub-pillars, if we look at them and be like, well, look, how much do I speak my truth in my everyday life? Well, I'm actually afraid of like stepping on people's shoes. Like I'm a bit of a people pleaser. Then you're not living authentically. How honorable are you? If you hear someone speaking badly about something that you hold very dear, so like if someone's being like racist or homophobic or transphobic, do you stand up for them or do you just idly watch? Forgiveness is a huge one. Like resentment harbors so much heaviness in our energy field and body. And it's like, well, are you willing to forgive? Forgiving isn't condoning. It's not saying, yes, it's okay that this person treated me this way, but it's just realizing that you're drinking your own poison by resenting them, right? And so we just go through so these are basically the pillars I've created for my group program, which will be like going through and helping them. Because if we look at every single pillar, these pillars are the ones that we need in order to live authentically. And what I mean by that is to live through soul. If we can match all of these, we'll be living through soul.
Yeah. And what benefits have you experienced with your clients portraying these pillars?
So many benefits. It's just, I guess the most recent one is I have a client that is gay. They are a lesbian, but they are also non-binary. And they did my program for 4 months prior, and now they're doing it again. And just yesterday, they told their parents that they're non-binary. And I mean, that was just such a huge, huge moment because they were terrified of doing it. And we worked on that yesterday in our session. And they did it. And I'm just so proud because that means it's another weight off their shoulders and they can live their life more authentically with their parents, with their family, which is so, so important. A big one is seeing a lot of people speak their truth, not people please anymore, being able to say no. Seeing my clients really trust the universe and trust that like, I didn't get the job, it's okay because another one's coming my way. Being in this real energy of effortless and ease, being able to trust their intuition and not being dictated by other people. The big thing is like anxiety comes from this fear of not feeling safe. But when we have this deep connection with the universe and know that we're protected at all times, anxiety can't come into play because we know that everything's happening always exactly as it's meant to. And we can't see the whole tapestry of life. We can only see a thread. And so it's about like trusting that the universe knows what it's doing and just trusting and not worrying so much, right? And then, like clients went from 3K months to 40K month, increased their Instagram following from 4,000 followers to 100,000 followers, like lots of different things, but the things that I usually like hold the dearest most is like clients just feeling more self-love, more compassion for themselves, more forgiveness, deeper relationships with their parents, with their friends, letting go of unhealthy habits and connections. That's what matters to me, like remembering their true essence of love. So yeah, I absolutely love my job. Like every day, I just am so grateful for the work that I can do, because I get to help people remember that they are not the stories, they are not the pain, they are not the suffering, that they are love. And that little kid within them and the little teenager within them and the little past life within them are all just looking for love, and they're all just trying to come back to that. And for me, it's just such a blessing that I have been able to become in alignment with this life purpose of mine, and to be able to share this with the world. Yeah, really happy.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Thank you. Thanks. And I really mean it.
It's really something to, I guess, see you as well talk about something that you're so passionate about, because you have such a light, such a bright light within you. And
Thank
just
you.
seeing you talk about something that you're so passionate about and helping clients and helping other people the whole time. I know other people can't see you right now, but just watching you, I was like, oh my God, this is it's just all this light, all this energy. And I just love it. I love it so much. So
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like people, if this is something that resonates with you and you feel like you could be living more authentically, please check Andrew out, because he is amazing.
Thanks.
Before we get ready to wrap up, I just wanted to ask, you've made such huge shifts in your life, and I know that a lot of that is hard work and dedication and trusting yourself. But is there any advice that you've ever been given that you feel like, this is something that I feel has just changed my mentality, changed my life, and would like to share that with others?
There's a few things that are coming up, but I think the most profound one is the one I kind of shared already, was when I got a healing from this girl, Alana, and I was crying and everything. And she just held me and said, Andrew, one day you're going to realize all of the darkness that you went through is your gold, is your stardust, is the reason that you're here. And I never understood it until actually probably today, whereas it just came up so strongly, where it was like, actually, please remember that every experience that we have, my dad was diagnosed with terminal cancer and he died 3 months ago. But throughout it, I was never angry. I was never, why is this happening? I was just like, I signed up for this. What am I learning from this? How can I step deeper into my light through this experience? And I think that's probably was the biggest and the most valuable advice I can think of right now, is that every experience is there to help you step deeper into your light if you're willing to see it. But you have to just bypass the ego. You have to bypass the anger, the sadness, the frustration, this feeling that you're being punished or whatever it is, and just really see that it's all happening for you, not to you. I'd say that's, the best advice I could give.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing. I think that's perfectly sums up exactly everything you're about as well. So I love it.
Thank you.
And if people are wanting to work with you and wanting to find out more about you and watch some of your funny reels,
yes,
where can they find you?
Sure. So my Instagram is Andrew Rowe, ROWE111 on Instagram. My website is www.andrew-rowe.co.uk. At the moment, privately, I'm fully booked until next year, but I am launching my first group coaching program at the end of October. So there's going to be a Facebook challenge, a 3-day Facebook challenge, which is going to be amazing. And you're going to be able to experience some of my healings as well. And it's totally free. So just follow me on Instagram, so then you can sign up. And then the group coaching program will be running from November. It's going to be 8 weeks, and then it'll be finishing like the second week of January. And we'll be going into everything around authenticity, what makes us authentic, looking at all the different pillars. There'll be loads of journaling processes. They'll also be giving healing techniques to do self-healings on yourself, as well as group healings, as well as laser coaching and individual healings as well. So it's going to be amazing. I'm super, super excited to be launching it. I have never done any group work. It's always been one-to-one, but whenever I do masterclasses for other people or anything, there's always a really good feedback, because I love groups, you know. I love being I guess, you know, I trained as a teacher, so there must be a reason for that somewhere, and as an actor as well. So yeah, those are the things. But if you're also interested in working with me privately, I can start taking bookings as of January.
Amazing. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everything, even teaching, everything that seems like it's so irrelevant to our careers now, it's like it had its purpose, it had its reason, its rhyme.
Exactly. And I remember someone told me, you know, you're going to teach later on in your life. I was like, no, I'm going to be an actor. And then I was like, oh, maybe I'll be like an acting teacher. And now I realize actually I'm going to be a spiritual teacher. And I think that's just so beautiful. And I love that. And I'm all for it. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it. And I always love chatting with you. You're amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much. I absolutely love this. It was just so much fun. Such a great conversation. So thank you.
Well, this is your Earth Side Spirit Guide signing off for the week. If you'd like to know more about how you can work with me, you can follow me on Instagram @l.embers or visit my website lembers.com.